Welcome to session two. This is the second of two sessions. We already had our first session last week, taking a deeper dive on policies for a circular economy. My name is Anna Oposa. I am the Marine Conservation and Circular Economy Specialist under the Climate Change and Sustainable Development Department of ADB as a consultant. And this training program is a capacity building program for ADB staff and participating developing member countries under the technical assistance promoting action on plastic pollution from source to sea in Asia and the Pacific, prioritizing and implementing actions to reduce marine plastic pollution around circular economy principles, policies, project design, and the global plastic treaty opportunities for scaling up investments supporting plastic circularity. So as you probably already know, we are offering a live translation. So if you would like to hear the presentations in Thai, Vietnamese, and Bahasa Indonesia, please click the interpretation icon on the lower part of your screen, the one that has the world icon. So you can click which language you prefer to hear the presentations in. So for this specific training for this quarter, our objectives are to deepen our understanding of existing and potential policy and governance mechanisms and share case studies of legal and policy frameworks being implemented in the developing member countries. But before that, I want to give you a short recap of what happened last week in case you weren't here or if you want a refresher. So our first speaker was Maria Hughes from the UN Environment Program, and she's focusing on circular economy in Southeast Asia. And she shared about different policies that are scaling the transition towards circular economy. So for example, she talked about the ASEAN Circular Economy Framework, which was adopted in 2021. She also spoke about the Law of Environmental Protection in Vietnam, adopted in 2020. And then in Thailand, she talked about the Green Integration Policy for Green Public Procurement 2022 to 2027. And in Indonesia, integrating green economy policies into the National Medium-Term Development 2025 to 2029. So with the examples that she gave, she was highlighting that you don't necessarily have to have a separate circular economy policy, but the principles of circular economy can be integrated into different policy frameworks. Our second speaker last week was Rocky Guzman, our international governance, legal and policy specialist, who just came from Ottawa, Canada, from the 4th International Negotiating Committee, or INC4. And he gave us updates on what happened during the discussions. So he shared that there were specific issues in focus. There were divergent views on certain topics like the primary plastic polymers, problematic and avoidable plastic products such as single-use plastics and microplastics, and extended producer responsibility, or EPR. We are going to hear more about EPR from our second speaker later. There are some convergence areas, so the good news is that there wasn't a lot of agreement on waste management measures and the just transition. There were also discussions on financing and implementation, especially on a multilateral fund, a plastic pollution fee, and the creation of national plans for the Global Plastics Treaty to align with the Global Plastics Treaty. The next International Negotiating Committee will be in November. So that's what happened last week. And this week, we have a 1-hour webinar for you, starting with a case study on circular economy in the People's Republic of China by Stefan Rao from ADB. And then we will take a deeper dive into extended producer responsibility in the Philippines, because this is a newly implemented law. So let's see what the first year of implementation has been like. And then, of course, we will offer some time for question and answer with the speakers. So if you have any questions, you can, of course, raise your virtual hand to be able to ask it, or you can type the questions in the chat. And then we've invited a discussant to react or give additional insights to the presentation. So that is Ao Xion Yi, the Principal Water Resource Specialist of ADB. And then we will close with some remarks and tell us where we're going next from James Baker, our Senior Circular Economy Specialist. We also want to remind everyone that the views expressed by the speakers, presenters, facilitators, and panelists in the training session are the views of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the views and policies of ADB or its board of governors or the governments they represent. With that, let's take a group photo for our documentation. So if you can, if you're able to, please turn on your cameras so that we can take a quick photo with the people here. Let's see. We have 31 participants. So let's just take, always nice to see familiar faces from the Q1 training. Okay, more cameras are turning on. Okay, we have our team taking photos. Okay, can we smile? We have several. Okay, you heard that. Okay, one more for safety. All right, we're good. So if you would like to turn your cameras off, you can before we start with our first speaker. So our first speaker is Stefan. Stefan Rao is the lead for ADB's Urban and Regional Planning Community of Practice and Urban Development Support to the People's Republic of China, or PRC. He integrates support to city cluster coordination, urban-rural integration, urban climate action, and circular economy zero-waste cities. He conceptualizes and implements pilot demonstration projects for low-carbon, climate-resilient, healthy, and age-friendly city action and management planning to bring about tangible benefits for the globally emerging fourth-generation urban communities. So, Stefan, welcome to the Zoom room.
Yeah, thank you very much.
To you.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Anna, for having me and for organizing this very relevant and timely series, and also, of course, our dear colleagues James Baker and other colleagues, Terry and so forth, from the Circular Economy working group, who really make wonderful trainings and enlighten all of us on this topic. So I have to state before I start that my contributions would all be very humbly from the perspective of an urban planner and not from a chemist or a solid waste manager, but more from the perspective of integrating things as an urban planner. So I will share a presentation, and so I will. Oops, that's wrong. Sorry, let me shift differently. How do I do that now? Yep. Sorry for this. Share desktop 2. Can you see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Still?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. So let me introduce a few policies, a little bit of background on circular economy in China, and of course the background and the concern that we all have with this is the resource scarcity and of course the increased amount of waste that's generated, and of course that's a global issue, and it's also an issue here in the PRC, where some people say that it's the biggest single producer of solid waste in the globe now, and still with amounts still to rise. Of course, this is not only a challenge for material resources, but also for water and land resources. And as the World Economic Forum has pointed out, it's also a wasted opportunity for economic returns and for economic activities, which is why this topic is so important. There have been a whole series of policies in the PRC. Maybe, in fact, it goes a bit further back than I'm reporting things here. I just want to start with this law that they have enacted on January 1st in 2009, which actually had that name, the Circular Economy Promotion Law. It was really a comprehensive law as it was conceptualized, and the focus of the initial activities were really on reducing industrial waste and circularizing industrial parks to promote industrial symbiosis. I think this concept is not quite familiar with people in this group, but industrial symbiosis means that you have companies and processes where a byproduct or a waste would not be discarded, but recovered and then used for another process, either by the same company or by another company. So nothing is wasted in that way. The 12th and 13th five-year plans of the country in China has included objectives of circular economy and has also piloted circular economy projects and some pilot cities. The Ministry of Ecology and Environment has developed and started to implement a pilot program for zero waste cities, and this is a national program with quite a number of cities enrolled, and they have made some very significant contributions. A small comment on the institutional arrangement is that in China, sometimes we have very good policies, and then sometimes the policies are under one ministry, and then they have overlapping authority and responsibilities. So in this case, the Ministry of Ecology and Environment does not have the typical authority and responsibility for solid waste management, which is under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development. But nonetheless, they have enacted this program, and they have a very strong academic support and also support from the pilot cities to implement meaningful actions. In the 14th five-year plan, which is the current five-year plan under implementation between 2021 and 2025, it again came out as a very important portion of the policy to fully implement the concept of circular economy and build a multi-level resource-efficient recycling system. I list a few activities that are serving as guidance principles under the 14th five-year plan, and I have them color-coded, and you will see those colors in the next slide. So circular industrial parks and circular production chains. So that's the top level of activity to promote circularity in the economy. And then standardized remanufacturing, circular agriculture and organic agriculture, reverse recycling, and then there's sort of the upstream, and then in the midstream we have extended producer responsibility system that should also still be part of the upstream system actually. Reduction, standardization, and recycling of express packaging, that's really midstream. And then the downstream improvements would include waste materials recycling and sorting, and also resource recycling that integrates online and offline with controlling of the flow. So we have conceptualized this and tried to operationalize this in a very simplified graphics. You apologize for that, just to make it easier for people to understand. So the current system is sort of a linear system of taking resources from nature, producing stuff, and then distributing, transporting and using those things, and then discarding them as waste. And of course, the circular economy is trying to circularize this whole stream of materials and resources. So we have used this principle as a guideline for a circular economy action plan for the PRC that was also aligned with the 14th five-year plan and in our current country partnership strategy. And we also put out these top stream on the left side in blue, and upstream circular economy life cycles production, distribution, use and share as midstream, and that downstream improvements of solid waste with increased recycling objectives. So more recent policies on circular economy in the PRC have been, I mentioned already, the 14th five-year plan, which with the objective of circular economy in general, also included a plan for actions for plastic pollution control. And then it established sort of a set of basic principles and national strategies for this. I'll speak to this a little bit later. And then there was a law on prevention and control of environment pollution caused by solid waste. And then also very recently, a law on promotion of sustainable economy. And that includes restriction of excessive packaging, recycled use of packaging, restriction of non-degradable plastics, basically a plastic bag ban for retail and supermarkets, and then also the development of a sustainable economy at large. So a few recent upstream policies of circular economy includes EPR, extended producer responsibility. Anna has already alluded to this, and I think our next speaker will also focus on that for the Philippines. So extended producer responsibility, what does that mean? I think you probably heard this concept already. It means that the producer, the manufacturer, is charged with the responsibility generally to take products back and then either remanufacture or take packaging back. So various kinds of arrangements and agreements are discussed based on policy or individual negotiation between governments or local governments and companies. And in China, they have prepared and enacted this EPR implementation plan in 2016. They started with 4 product categories: electrical, electronics, automobiles, and lead-acid batteries and packages. In 2024, they had established an initial basic system and framework for this policy, and then have recorded a little bit of progress on more ecological design standards and recycling efficiency. And they claim that they have discarded or recycling efficiency of discarded products at that time has averaged at 40%. Okay, I'm not sure if that fully applies and how they count it, but anyway, that's what they record, but that's what they claim and report. And by 2025, so next year, they aim at formalizing a comprehensive set of EPR laws, and then have really a wide implementation of ecological or life cycle based design and production implemented. By next year, they aim at a recycling rate of 50% and also at the use of recycled materials in production of new products should reach 20%. In fact, some of the things that we do in our projects and what we also learn for some of those numbers are actually significantly higher, because 20% does not sound very, very high if you read it. There was a notice on joint cleaning and recertification of the recycling industries of electronic waste tires, waste plastics, waste clothing, and waste household appliances in 2017. They banned illegal recycling enterprises in various industries. They had a focus on electronic waste and electric waste appliances, to process them, reprocess them, and reutilize those. They had standardized and guided recycling enterprises for those 2 industries in quite detail. Just as an example, I'll have another slide to show a little bit more on that. In 2018, they enacted this law on the prevention and control of environment pollution caused by solid waste. At that time, it was still under revision. I believe this is now already enacted and adopted. So the government has to establish the EPR system and encourage producers to practice ecological design and life cycle based design, including collecting the discarded or end of life or out of use products back and then remanufacture. An example of EPR for the electric and electronic waste sector. I'm using some slides from a colleague that we also have relationships with of Tsinghua University, Professor Tan Chuen-Ying. That's from one of their presentations. So they laid out the system of electronic waste legislation. So there's this clean production promotion law, solid waste pollution prevention law, circular economy promotion law that leads to regulations of the electronic and e-products and so forth, and then requires basically to collect or recollect with reverse logistics the products, and then recycle and rehabilitate and remanufacture electronics and electrics. So they came up with a catalog of electronics and electric products, and then in fact to incentivize this whole procedure of people calling the company to actually get it back. They get money for actually doing that, and then the government actually hands out the money to the manufacturing for this process. Here was an update by 2018. You can see that mostly in the central and eastern part of China, 109 companies have been qualified, and they received funds for this activity. And sort of on the right-hand side, you can see how they in practice try to both incentivize and then also actually recollect or collect the discarded products from the consumers. Some midstream policies of circular economies include plastics and packaging. I mentioned earlier, so the law on the prevention and control of environmental pollution caused by solid waste forbids and restricts production, sale, and use of non-degradable plastic bags. Yeah, that's the plastic ban I mentioned. And violations are actually subject to corrections and fines, and companies are requested to report their use of single-use plastic to the higher authorities. In practice, I live in Beijing, so if I go to the supermarket, they still offer me a bag. I have to pay for it, a small amount. I think it's similar to a few years ago in the Philippines still. So I think there's still some issues on implementation and on execution, and then also to actually collect those fines and fees that they have put out. So there's still room to improve the day-to-day implementation of this, in fact, quite a lot. This also, in fact, affects not only plastic bags in commercial commercial sales, but also plastic as single-use plastic in restaurants and food delivery arrangements. Then there's a catalog of prohibited and restricted production, sale, and use of plastic products. This was issued in 2020 by the National Development and Reform Commission, and this really is a comprehensive list of all types of things that they put there, and this really was a very drastic step for companies to see that actually many were affected, and my understanding is that enforcement is still a little bit on the weak side, but the awareness is raised, and hopefully the companies and also the forwarding companies, the logistics companies will act on that. There's a guiding catalog for industrial restructuring from this year. Actually, it requires daily commodities that contain plastic, so microplastics, that they branded them basically as outdated, and they have to phase them out. So some of them have to be phased out quite fast, even immediately, to reduce microplastics and microplastic pollution of the ocean. Some downstream policies related to improved solid waste management happen in the PRC actually fairly recently. If you think about it, like in the year 2000, they had piloted waste sorting in a few cities, but then they really asked to implement that in 2019, 2020. So in 2020, all the bigger cities were really required to have waste segregation and sorting implemented. So now in this year, next year, lower level cities also are required to implement this. You can see here a small facility that is quite common, that you see in many places in China, where waste comes in. This is sort of pictures that you see in communities, residential communities, with where they sort basically into 4 categories, or segregate in 4 categories of waste, also shown here on the right-hand side. So blue, green, red, and yellow, but sometimes a bin is also black. In fact, in the building where I live, I just have 2. I just have a black bin and a green bin. So it's not implemented even on the apartment level, but then they sort it out in the community level into those 4. And then I think what happens a lot is actually that you have still a very, very strong informal sector in China, where local people living in the apartments or in the buildings, they help sort waste into the main recyclables, cardboard, paper, glass, high-grade plastics, textiles, a few things like that. And then they have their middlemen, and then sort of more professional downstream traders that collect, hand out, they pay everybody who delivers something, and then they sell it to industry. So this process in China is estimated, depending on the city and on the even local place. This is estimated to take out about 35% of the waste that makes it.
Yeah, last 2 minutes.
Last 2 minutes.
Last 2 minutes.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. So this is still a challenge, I guess, to say. But there's also, what I'm saying is that the informal sector still plays a very important role in that. We have a lot of ADB operations related to circular economy in the PRC. You see many activities that are related to circular economy. Let me just go through some in quick. So we laid out in our roadmap also certain avenues that we can go, and then we have also identified a few projects. So, for example, we have a TA ongoing on circular economy, zero waste cities, where we have 4 outputs and 3 outputs, one on upstream, midstream, and downstream activities, and then the fourth output to create the circularity linkages between those. We have several projects where we also related to land circularity, water, wastewater, treated wastewater reuse. This is Eureta. And then we have a project in Hunan province where we do waste, old landfill rehabilitation, and also mining, and then improve solid waste management system. A project that was approved last year in the Shanxi province. We support solid waste management with sorting, recyclables, and storage and trading. We support recyclable materials use in infrastructure constructions at a quite high percentage. For example, in the buildings that we support, we write 25%, but the government actually said that they commit to even use more than 50% recycled materials to construct those buildings and roads. We use treated
Hi, Stefan.
Yeah.
Please wrap up soon. Thank you.
Okay, and then of course capacity building and ICT platforms. We have a project that is currently under approval process for a PSOD loan, where we also support solid waste management, recycling, and waste to energy, and of course others. So I think it's important to have institutional strengthening, institutionalization, the cross-sector coordination, and so forth, have policy standards, governance in place, and then make sure that the private sector is fully on board and fully engaged, and also business models have been developed that are really viable. And then I think improving digitalization in EPR and product as a service should further be promoted and then implemented. Okay, I stop here. Thank you, Anna. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. You're clearly very passionate about this, and China has done so much as well, and it's exciting to see for other countries to be able to follow. So speaking of other countries, we have our next presentation from China. We're headed to the Philippines, and we are going to hear from Ma'am Maria Delia Cristina M. Valdez, also known as Ma'am Del, who's been with the Environment Management Bureau since 1996. She's currently the Supervising Environmental Management Specialist of the Office of the Assistant Director and is the interim head of the Extended Producer Responsibility Review Committee, the National Ecological Center. So over to you, Ma'am Del.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for that kind introduction, Ms. Anna. Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to present to you the Philippines Extended Producer Responsibility. Next slide, please. So this is the outline of my presentation. First, I'll be providing you a background, how our EPR law came about, and then the salient features and the status of the implementation. I'll be providing also some insights on the impact of EPR to the industries, and then the challenges and opportunities. Next slide, please. First and foremost, how our EPR came about. In 2019, the Philippines developed the National Plan of Action for the Prevention, Reduction, and Management of the Marine Litter. It was developed through a multi-stakeholder and multi-sectoral workshops and public consultation with an overarching goal of zero waste to Philippine waters by 2040 and to support the vision of a Philippines free of marine litter through shared responsibility, accountability, and participatory governance. Next slide, please. The NPOA-ML has 10 strategies, and I'll be zeroing in the second strategy, that is the circular economy and sustainable consumption and production. These initiatives calls for a phase-wise shift to inclusive circularity in public and private sectors that will minimize resource consumption and waste generation. This includes EPR. So this is where our EPR started. We started talking about EPR in 2019 during the formulation of our NPOA-ML strategy. Next slide, please. The NPOA-ML brought about the crafting of bills on extended producers' responsibility, which on July 23, 2022 came into law as Republic Act 11898, or the Extended Producer Responsibility Act of 2022. The said law basically amends the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act, wherein manufacturers and producers of plastic packaging become responsible of the waste they produce. Its implementing rules and regulations was signed into an administrative order 5 months after the effectivity of the EPR law. The EPR law hopes to address 70% of the material value of plastics, equivalent to around $890 million per year, lost in the Philippine economy, as reflected in a study conducted by World Bank. It was said that about 35% of wastes are leaked into the ocean. Next slide, please. Our EPR law basically revolves around plastic packaging only for now. So it covers plastic packaging, rigid plastics, and flexible plastics. Next slide, please. So who are those that are required to comply with the law? These are the obliged enterprises or large enterprises that generate plastic packaging waste with total assets exceeding of 100 million. These can be brand owners, manufacturers, importers of consumer goods. However, micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises are only encouraged to submit EPR programs. Right now, we are building, previous slide, please. Right now, we are building our own database from the data sets of various government agencies to determine the universe of those who are obliged enterprise. So eliminating the non-plastic producing sector, we were able to trim down the obliged enterprises from 4,500 large enterprises to 2,130 obliged enterprises. And we are still filtering data sets from our Securities and Exchange Commission. Next slide, please. The EPR Act requires the introduction of gradual implementation of EPR programs for plastic packaging with the aim of efficiently managing plastic packaging waste through reduction of non-environment friendly packaging products as upstream activities and another for downstream activities. For upstream, there are several activities that needs to be implemented by the private sector. This includes the reusable or packaging products or packaging design, inclusion of recycled content or recycled material in packaging material, adoption of appropriate product refilling systems for retailers, viable reduction rates plan, information and education campaign schemes, and appropriate labeling of products and packaging materials. Next slide, please. Another program are downstream activities. This includes waste recovery schemes through redemption, buyback, and offsetting, diversion of recovered waste, transportation of recovered waste or proper diversion or disposal to disposal sites, waste cleanup at coastal and public places, investment in commercial and industrial waste diversion or disposal facilities, and partnerships with local governments, communities, and informal waste sector. Next slide, please. The target and compliance with the objective of establishing and phasing in recovery programs that will achieve plastic neutrality, the EPR Act of 2022 sets the following targets for recovery of plastic product footprint generated during the previous years. So for 2023, a 20% diversion should be met. 2024, 40%, 2025, 50%, 2026, 60%, 2027, it's 70%, and 2028, 80%. We hope to meet the zero waste to nature zero waste to Philippine waters by 2040 through these targets. Next slide, please. We have also seen the importance of having collaboration with the other national government agencies. We have the Department of Science and Technology for the creation of an information hub for cleaner technologies on solid waste management, the Department of Trade and Industry for the development and mandatory adoption of eco-labels, for the Department of Social Work and Development, for the standards or safeguards for social inclusion, like the informal waste sector, for the Department of Interior and Local Government, establishment of collaborative partnerships with the LGUs, communities, and informal sector, for the Department of Labor and Employment, implementation of standards, regulations, and safeguards systems for fair wage policies, including green jobs. For the Department of Finance, our policies on fiscal incentives. And next slide, please. Just recently, we had drafted a joint administrative order with the Department of Finance pertaining to the provision of fiscal incentives to the obliged enterprises, PROs, or collectives and other NGOs for them to be able to take part with the implementation of the EPR law. Next slide, please. There are, however, penalties that will be imposed for non-compliance, whether or not it is a result of failure to register, falsification of documents, misdeclaration of generated or recovered footprint, employment of any scheme to maliciously evade the responsibility of an enterprise under the EPR law. And the fifth is tamper its compliance with Section 44F of the EPR law. Next slide. Fines for non-compliance ranges from 5 million to 10 million pesos, or $86,000 to 172,000 US dollars for the first offense, and 15 million pesos or $258,000, but not exceeding 20 million pesos or $344,000 for the third offense, and an automatic suspension of business permit until the requirement of the law is complied with. Next slide. The DENR further urges obliged enterprises to actively involve the informal waste sector in the EPR Act implementation. This can be achieved by enhancing existing systems within the informal waste sector and motivating them to invest in building resilience. Next slide. There are about over 100,000 people engaged in the Philippines in informal waste collection and recycling, including families, women, and children. And we hope to promote social inclusion in the EPR implementation. This could be through enhancing livelihood, collaborating with LGUs to provide financing literacy programs, and empowering LGUs and other stakeholders to establish robust data recording, tracking, and reporting system. Next slide, please. For now, as of May 3, 2024, we have a total of 917 EPR programs submitted in our office. 298 of those are from the micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, which we are proud of, since they are participating voluntarily. By June 30 or July 1, we are expecting submission of EPR compliance audit reports from these obliged enterprises, collectives, and PROs. We have issued Department Administrative Order 2024-04 to guide EPR, to guide them on the EPR compliance reporting and audit guidelines. Next slide, please. For the impact to industries, let me now focus on manufacturing industry, retail industry, and consumer goods industry. 6 points. First is on innovation and product design. There is now a push towards redesigning products to be more sustainable, using recyclable materials and reducing packaging waste. For partnerships with recycling firms, many manufacturers are now forming partnerships with recycling companies and other collection companies to manage their waste more efficiently and to comply with the law. For packaging changes, there are companies in the consumer goods sector which are now shifting towards more sustainable packaging options, such as biodegradable or recyclable materials to meet the EPR requirements. For the supply chain adjustments, retailers are now adapting their supply chains to include more sustainable products and packaging, often requiring suppliers to meet specific EPR provisions also, or EPR standards. For waste management initiatives, retailers are implementing in-store recycling programs and take-back systems for packaging products. And the last are cost implications, wherein manufacturers face higher operational costs due to the need to implement waste management systems, recycling processes, and compliance mechanisms, which were not present in their previous operations. Next slide, please. For waste management and recycling industry, we saw that there are growth opportunities. We saw that the EPR will create new business opportunities for waste management and recycling companies, leading to industry growth and job creation. There will be also the increased demand for services, especially for collection and transport, as well as recycling and disposal facilities. This will be driven by the need for compliance with the EPR regulations. And for technological advancements, the industry is seeing increased investments in advanced recycling technologies and infrastructure to handle the surge in recyclable material collection. Next slide, please. For the challenges and opportunities, we thought of 4. The first is the infrastructure deficiencies. Well, the Philippines is an archipelago, and recycling facilities are few and mostly concentrated in urban centers. Investments in recycling facilities and systems for collecting and processing are also required. Similar to that, having a robust data tracking system should be accompanied by the collection and transportation services. The next is on policy and guidance needs. Despite having the implementing rules and regulations of the EPR law, there are still policy issuances or guidance documents that needs to be developed. Some of these evolve during the operational realities or during implementation, which we call our operational realities in the EPR implementation. The next is enforcement and monitoring, ensuring compliance and EPR regulation with the EPR regulations can be challenging. Effective monitoring and enforcement mechanisms need to be in place to hold producers accountable. And lastly is the coordination among stakeholders. EPR requires collaboration among the different stakeholders, the government, the industry, and the consumers. Coordinating this might be a challenge, particularly in aligning the interests of various stakeholders. Next slide, please. We want to brag about our look forward. This is the branding we use for our EPR. It's look forward, linking opportunities and partnerships towards circular economy through EPR. So when you see this look forward with an R in the left side, it is the Philippines EPR. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Del, and giving us a background on EPR and the progress that the Philippines has made. So we just have time for one question, but I will read it in the chat. So Kun Wasana asked if there's any law or regulation to address packaging from online platforms in the PRC, and Stefan has answered it online, also in the chat, saying that their TA actually included a national pilot for reusable packaging from e-commerce with participation of pilot cities. And they are learning from it, and a lot more work needs to be done for experimentation, including on inner packaging and on the last mile and door-to-door delivery. So curious what other countries do in this area and what they can do together. And Kunwasana has responded to say Thailand is proposing EPR laws for packaging and e-waste, and e-commerce is very big. I think in all of the countries or most of the countries that are represented in this call, we have Lazada, Shopee, Temu, Amazon. Like these companies are all increasing in the e-waste sector. The e-commerce sector. So I will pause there and invite Aoshion Lee to give some reactions and additional insights to the presentations that were given earlier. Sean, over to you.
Thanks, Anna. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Just a quick recap, I guess, and just to share some of the things that we're doing in other parts of ADB and our operations. Like Stefan, I'm also based here in the Beijing office, but we're managing a program across the region, including Southeast Asia and South Asia. Let me just mention that to echo Stefan, we've been supporting the PRC on a lot of this work on circular economy. We had a plastics TA in 2023 as well that prepared some knowledge work where we outlined some of the regulations and the policies that have been promulgated to help support and encourage plastic waste recycling, but also reduction of plastic waste. And Stefan outlined some of those laws and policies, and we're continuing to support them in our Yellow River Ecological Corridor program, which is one of ADB's flagship river basin management programs, including some components where we have agricultural projects that have recycling and agricultural film incentive programs to encourage the reduction or the incentivizing the collection for proper waste disposal, because there's a lot of agricultural film used in agricultural sector in the PRC. So I'll stop there on the PRC, and I also want to just flag some work that we're doing in the circular economy space in Indonesia. In fact, this week a very I guess a landmark project, a policy-based loan in Indonesia is going to our board, and this program is looking at supporting the government of Indonesia in implementing its national action plan for handling marine debris, which it was originally released in 2018, and the plan has a very ambitious target of handling 70% of plastic marine debris by 2025 through waste management, plastic reduction, and various recycling initiatives. And this is the first program of its kind that ADB is supporting, and it will be a model for other work that's being done. And like what the speakers today have shared, it also involves extended producer responsibility commitments to help reduce the amount of plastic being generated, and to also look at reduction roadmaps for meeting targets such as 30% reduction in waste by 2029 in Indonesia, and also bans and restrictions on single-use plastic products in cities around Jakarta and other local government areas. I also want to mention, while we're talking about Indonesia, that in this plastic space, ADB also supported non-sovereign loans in Indonesia with a company PT Alba, and it helped to establish, it was a $44 million non-sovereign loan, establishing a recycling facility in Central Java in 2023. And this is part of a broader regional TA that ADB is running, and James Baker, who you flagged earlier, he's also leading a lot of this work in the space. In addition to this, ADB also awarded a grant to another Jakarta-based startup company in 2021, Alner Group, to develop the deposit-based reuse system for reusable packages for fast-moving consumer goods. And I think what we're seeing here in the region, and PRCs of no exception, there's a growing the gig economy. The takeaways, the plastic packaging, it's really exploded post-COVID, and we can see that if we don't act now, there's going to be a big issue in the future. And this is where the circular economy hits this broader sort of this circular economy with the food nature nexus that you've heard about, where these types of pollutants actually are starting to impact on our waterways, and linking to other work that ADB is supporting in the ocean health space, where ADB is supporting through a $5 billion action plan. So these are broad areas that are being done, and the Indonesia work will also serve as a model, as I mentioned before, for other work, including what Delia Valdez from the ENR has talked about in the Philippines. We hope to also support a PBL, policy-based loan in the Philippines, looking at sustainable development of coastal and marine ecosystems, or what they call terming a blue PBL. And whilst it's still being developed and discussed with the government, some of the proposed reform areas for this work includes sustainable fisheries, ecosystem conservation, integrated coastal and marine management, and most importantly to our call here today, improving waste and wastewater management systems, including the encouragement of circular economy looking at plastics pollution leakages, especially for microplastics in oceans and waterways. This is that nexus that I referred to, and of course, reduction of avoidable plastics. So as you can see, ADB is starting to move into this broader space where we're seeing countries demand these types of support and actions, and where ADB comes to bring our values, that we start to convene a lot of the different players, bring the countries together, bring best practices together, and then we can showcase how we can come up with innovative solutions through our programs and pilots to help tackle this problem, I should say, with greater impact, to catalyze broader action across the region. So Anna, let me just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sean, for sharing additional projects, programs, and policies happening. It seems to be a very exciting space to be working in at countries and at ADB. So we'd like to thank Stefan, Mamdel, and Sean for sharing their expertise, their time, and their knowledge to this group. And now to close this webinar for Q2, I'd like to call on James Baker, the Senior Circular Economy Specialist for Plastic Waste of ADB. Over to you, James.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna. And thank you, Sean. Thank you, everybody who presented today and presented last week. Just some key takeaways: the complexity of circular economy, the range of policies that are needed to operationalize the entire system, I think can be daunting. They can only really achieve their full potential as policies for waste management, for substitution, for EPR become operational in the same space, in the same country. But I think that the fabulous thing about this TA and about the training, and we mentioned this, Anna, in the first session, is that we're talking about actual policies. We're reviewing, we're learning from real life policies, real life projects. ADB continues to mobilize significant funding in the sovereign, in the non-sovereign area of circular economy, of plastics management. So we are gaining that knowledge by working, and the countries on this call, the DMCs across the ADB region are taking the lead in policies. They're taking the lead in legislation. So we're no longer in the theory stage. We are learning from the realities of the world. So although circular economy policies can be daunting, although it can seem like a long road to get to the full benefit of these policies, take faith, take strength from the fact that everybody is doing it. We are learning, it's real, it's moving forward, and it can be achieved. So on that note, thank you very much to Anna and her team. Thank you very much to my TA team. Thank you to everybody who has joined us. And we look forward to the third installation of our training. Anna, back to you.
Thank you so much, James. So you heard it. It is achievable. It is happening. It is real. And we are so happy that you are part of this journey. So with that, when you end this call, you will be directed to a post-event survey. So please take a minute. It's very short. So please make sure you fill up the form for our tracking. It'll show up in your web browser once you leave this call. And as James said, we are going to have our Q3 training happening in July. That is happening on July 2 and 9. Also webinars, 1-hour webinars focusing on financing the circular economy. So we'll take a deeper dive into finance mechanisms and finance plans on how we can scale and support the circular economy initiatives. So please make sure you save the date. We have already sent the calendar invites, so you should have already received them, and we will send more details. And soon we will send you the key takeaways document, the copies of the presentations, and some more information about webinars happening in Q3. So thank you everyone for being here, and have a great day.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.